Welcome to the Game Sense Football Podcast. I'm Ewan, and with me is Nas.
Hello.
And in today's episode, we continue our conversation with Canadian sports broadcaster and football commentator Adam Jenkins. If you haven't heard the first part of this interview, do give it a listen and let us know what you think.
Yes, so Adam, the Canadian League, the CPL, is one of those competitions where we have a league phase and a separate playoff phase after that. So how does that work?
Yes. In true North American fashion, we are obsessed with playoffs. So it is just an understanding that there is going to be playoffs here. Essentially, it's the almost an identical format to Major League Soccer in that there is a league winner by the end. The league winner gets a little bit of a benefit to where they start in the playoff tournament, which is essentially the cup. We just don't differentiate it that way. So they would get benefits there. They also qualify for continental play for in our case, it's now CONCACAF Champions Cup. It used to be CONCACAF Champions League. They've switched back to the old. So there's reward for them, but it is assumed, and even with the I shouldn't say, obviously, the clubs, when they win the titles, they get stars above their crest or some variation of it.
Yep.
We do it a bit differently. We put it on the back of their shirts, on the neck, and kind of like the NBA does, they get the number of titles that they've won. And they only do that for the playoff champions. So we're asked to say the regular season or league winners, and then the playoff or league champions. That's how we differentiate it.
Is there a winner that's held in higher regard?
So we have one club. They're in a Canadian city called Calgary, and they are known for being dominant in the regular season. They've won it twice. And last year they won by 13 or 14 points. But the problem is there's another team from a city just 45 minutes away from me called Hamilton, where they've won the league once, I think, off the top of my head, but they've won the playoffs 4 of the 5 years. Wow. And they are seen as the New York Yankees or the Los Angeles Lakers of our league because they're the playoff champions. So they kind of have this aura of them where when it's a match that matters, they're the team that you would expect to win, whereas the team from Calgary, which is called Cavalry, is sort of more the more traditional winner that is just excellent over a longer period of time. But this other club has been built to win 1-off games or 2-off games. So again, it depends who you ask. If you ask them in Calgary, they'll say, no, ours is more prestigious. But generally the way that the league communicates and promotes is the playoff champion is generally considered higher on the mountain, so to speak.
Where's Halifax?
Halifax is on the Atlantic Ocean. Canada, as I'm sure people can know if you look at a map, is a very large country.
Yes.
We have a lot of northern territory that is very inhabited, but we are a massive country. The problem is we have Halifax, which Toronto is kind of assumed where I am right now, as much as every other city will roll their eyes and die a little bit when I say this, is kind of the center of the country. It is the economic capital. It is the largest city. So everything's kind of based here. Halifax is like a 20-hour drive to the east, or a 3-hour flight, depending on your plane. What makes this league so challenging, and one of the reasons why a national league hasn't worked for so long, is that the width of the country is insane. So we have a team on the west coast in Victoria, which is on Vancouver Island, as far west as you can get. And they will play 4 times a year, 2 flights out that way. Halifax, which is, I want to say it's like 7,000 kilometers apart. Like that is the scale. It's they say it's the longest away trip in football, and it is. There's no direct flight. That's how long it is. But Halifax would be on the east coast of Canada, in the Atlantic Canada, we call it, or the Maritimes, whereas the British Columbia is on the polar opposite end.
Do you go to Halifax often?
No, I've never been. So my dad is from a town like 40 minutes away, and I've still never been. Is one of my great regrets. Halifax is one of the best cities in Canada, especially if you like the party scene or a pub crawl. Like they're kind of known for being right on the ocean and just really welcoming, fun, friendly people. I've not been as of yet, and I'm hoping that they host a final eventually, because we were always on location for the final.
I'm asking about Halifax because there is a subreddit thread saying that Adam Jenkins is the best commentator in the Canadian PL because he knows that the kitchen in Halifax has multiple supporters groups. So how do you know this?
Because there's only 6,000 people that fit in that stadium, so you get to know the supporters pretty well. No, Halifax is our beacon in the Canadian Premier League of a small, intimate venue where the atmosphere is always the best. And I'm sure that will ruffle the feathers of a few other markets that have unbelievable support, but it is one of the most engaged fan bases, one of the most rowdy fan bases. They are known, the players go there. It's one of two stadiums in the country or in the league that have proper grass pitches, so that's already a plus for them. And the environment, the atmosphere is great, so they have this aura about them, and they've worked hard for it to be that great place to go and play or to go and watch a football match. But it's intimate. It's only 6,000 people. It's much different than a 70,000 or in some cases 80-90,000 seat stadium. And because there's only 8 teams, and I call the stat I found the other day accidentally is the CPL just had its 500th match 2 weeks ago, which was a pretty big milestone for them. They were excited. I have called 251 of those games over 6 years. So I get to know them pretty intimately and pretty well. That person was also just my burner account. That was me posting but just wanted to clear the air a little bit.
Yeah. Cool. So what's the best memory you have as a commentator or as a fan of football? Is it the same?
One memory was Canada women's national team, who won the Olympics the last time around in Tokyo. They had a horrific World Cup, and then they blew a match that they should have won against Jamaica to go back to the Olympics. They lost, or they drew, and they should have probably beat them convincingly. So there was the return leg in Toronto at our national soccer stadium, and they probably packed 22,000 people there, which for women's football, which is growing, we actually just announced a few weeks ago, we as Canada, that we're going to have the Northern Super League, which is being operated by a former Canadian women's national team player. Christine Sinclair is going to be involved in some capacity, all these things. So that support is growing like a lot of women's sports in North America right now, which is super exciting. But anyways, I was there for that game, and Canada had to win convincingly, and they did. And to feel the stadium shake and to be a part of that was very exciting when they won. CPL final is amazing, where we had won last year. It was the end of October, which for us is like probably as late as you want to play football before the snow and ice really comes in across the country. And it was the worst game for 90 minutes. It was the league winner and the team that they have never beaten in the final. And this team, Calgary, which I mentioned earlier, Cavalry, they scored the first goal in extra time. And everyone's like, okay, this is it. They're going to win the match. They're finally going to get that trophy that has eluded them. And then like 7 minutes later, before halftime of the first half of added time, they had one of their new guys score a goal from the corner of the box, pinged it off the post. And I was like, okay, this is going to penalties. But then with like 3 or 4 minutes before full time, there was a player who was a day one guy with this team in front of the supporter section right behind him. And I just had this hunch where I'm watching him in person, I'm watching the monitor, and there's just this like unflappable desire in his eyes. And I'm like, he's going to try and score from the corner flag because he's done it before. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. But I thought, okay, he's going to attempt this. And like 99 times out of 100, he's not going to score. But I used that knowledge and reading his body language, and I set it up as, I think the call was Tristan Borges, a player known for his moments of the extraordinary from the corner flag, service, and goals. Right in front of the supporters, confetti, pyro, all these things. And we put a GoPro in the booth. Wow. And I literally, like when I call games in person, I'm standing and I pace around to keep my energy up. And when the corner happened, I'm leaning forward on my desk. It goes off the post and in. I leapt like a bunny or a 4-year-old girl. I have not decided which one, and it's on camera. So there's a still frame of me with like my feet doing the High School Musical dance. But to be a part of that and to lay out and watch and hear, and I'm beside Jimmy again, who's been in the Premier League and been to these big moments, and he was gobsmacked. So to experience that and to have the best call of my career in that moment was really special. And for now, that tops the list, but as any selfish, greedy announcer says, I hope that changes soon.
Yeah. I think there might be some people who might also be familiar with another piece of commentary that you did in a
Okay.
game last year.
I know where this is going.
Yeah, it's nothing embarrassing, obviously, just not for you at least.
Not
It
for
was-
me.
not
No,
for you,
certainly
yeah.
not for me.
Yeah, it was I believe what was it? Valor against was it Halifax again?
I want to say Halifax Wanderers, yeah.
Yeah.
In Winnipeg, IG Field, and Willie Accio is who you're about to ask me about.
We'll share the clip for with our listeners later, but can you just briefly explain what happened?
No, because to this day, Nas, I don't know what happened, and nor does Willie. But the story is Valor plays on an it's Canadian American football, gridiron stadium. And this is the best explanation that I can give you. So one thing you need to know is it's artificial turf.
Mhm.
Number two is with American or gridiron football, if you're not familiar, field goals are part of the game. They have the uprights. You got to kick the ball through the uprights for field goals and extra point conversions. But the problem with that is that with the dimensions of their fields, the uprights that are removed for football are right in the center of the goal line. And there's a little piece of turf that's slightly more elevated than the rest of it to cover the hole that the uprights sit in.
Okay.
Anyways, that's the backstory. So you're envisioning they're on artificial turf. It's not an ideal surface, all these things. It's a hot summer day. And the guy who led the charge in the attack, his name's Alessandro Rigi. He used to play for Halifax, and he's trying to score against his former team. And he beats the keeper, and the ball is rolling slowly and slowly closer and closer to the line. And his new teammate, Willie Accio, who's known for his speed, athleticism, he does backflips after he scores like a FIFA player. He's amazing. He's watching the ball roll and he's thinking either I want this goal for some kind of contract bonus or I'm not sure this ball is going in the net. So he runs to the loose ball that is going to go in the net and he meets it right on the goal line. And his hips are forward, his shoulders are forward. The ball from the goal line goes backwards and out of play. And I remember doing that game solo. That was when we were still doing solo booths. And I would have loved a color commentator to be like, what just happened? But in that moment, I'm just reacting like everyone else. I think I say, did he clear that off the goal line himself? I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Did Accio clear that off the line himself? What in the world? I don't think I've ever seen that before.
And his teammates like, are you kidding me? Like that was a big moment for me. Everyone's watching, everyone's laughing. And then that clip went worldwide viral. I'm sure I was the most famous football announcer in the world for like 15 minutes or 24 hours because it was the most asinine, can't fathom what we just saw moment. And we had the former pros that we work with, like they used to play in India or in Ireland or in England, wherever they played. Their old teammates are like, what the hell was that in Canada? Like, this is where you are now? Like, what's going on in Canada? This poor kid, I'm sure he took his phone and he threw it in a lake and just didn't get a new one for 2 weeks. But he and I will be forever entwined for that moment because he somehow, again, hips forward, facing the open goal, kicked the ball backwards, and everyone's like, match fixing. And I'm like, we're not that famous. There's no money to be made in match fixing. And I feel for the kid. He's got a great sense of humor about it now. But I'm sure if you were to like interview him for the first time, be like, hey, so let's talk about that time. He'd be like, no, thank you. Next question. But yeah, that's probably the most famous I've ever been in my life.
It's very difficult to describe and impossible to explain what actually happens.
Yeah. Our working theory is that he is trying to just smash the ball into the net, side-footed, side netting, and he could do that a million times and score every single time. He just got unlucky in that moment. And now has that blooper forever.
Yeah. If you've seen any worst football misses you can think of, Fernando Torres or whatever, this stops it.
This is number one for all of eternity, which is great for me. It's really not great for Willie, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. When we have guests on the show, we like to ask them if they have any strange pet peeves or obsessions or fascinations about football. So, do you have any?
I have a few.
on.
These are very nitpicky, and some so like I can go one of two ways. I can give you sort of the ones that everyone thinks. Like you sort of had asked me for 3 likes and dislikes. The likes is that this is truly the global game, and the reason that we're on a podcast together from the other side of the world and 12 hours apart is the reach of this sport, and that is the most magical thing about it.
Very wholesome.
And then I can go super nitpicky and annoying and say, why do players still wear shin guards? Because they are wearing child-sized pieces of plastic that aren't protecting their legs. And we had a fourth official in a Canadian championship match like 2 weeks ago ask the player to show him his shin guard. And he's like, ref, it's there. And the guy rolled down his sock and it might have been 5 centimeters big. And he had like taped it or so like that. Just like, let them go. That's an overarching theme for me. I'm going to make it a theme. Football is so nitpicky about certain rules and not about others. Why are players still held back by the fourth official when they're trying to come in as a substitute until their teammate has crossed the line, when the 6-second rule for goalkeepers, which is still a sensitive subject for Canadians because of the Olympics back in London, but I digress. Why is that allowed to be sort of this imaginary 15 seconds, 20 seconds is fine? Other dislikes, the concept of stoppage time. What the hell? I have a very analytical mind. If we're doing stoppage time, it should be like we saw in the last World Cup and in the Chinese Super League, especially, where if the ball's out of play for 13 minutes, we're going to play 13 more minutes of stoppage time. That's excessive. I think we should just have a clock. If the referee blows his whistle or her whistle, we stop the clock. There's no reason we can't do that like any other sport. Tradition be damned. Rugby does it. Everyone else does it. Let's just come together and say, okay, if the ball goes over the line for a goal kick or a throw-in, let the clock ride. That's sort of the natural flow of the game. If somebody's hurt, if there is a foul, stop it so then we don't have to guess how much time the referee is going to add. And for my third dislike, stadiums, and I know why they do it, but it also drives me crazy. The clock is clearly capable of ticking past 45 minutes. We all know it's in stoppage time. If you're watching on television, you get the slide out. It says we have 3 minutes and here is how much stoppage time has been played. Put that in the stadium for the players, for the supporters, for the coaches. Just do it. The technology is there. End of rant.
That's very good. I mean, I think we always appreciate a good rant. Actually, we had a listener question very recently about stoppage time and a stop clock.
Well, for me, it's for a sport that's so precise, and the money they're spending on the new offside rules, and is this guy's pinky fingernail past the shoulder of the defender, and goal line technology, which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, they're so precise on some things, then they're like, let the fourth official count. 3 minutes? We think it's 3 minutes? It's going to be 3 minutes. Like, it just doesn't fit in my brain properly.
I was telling Ewan that I'm personally in favor of stopping the clock simply because I hate it when you're watching and it's the first half, but it's 52 minutes at the clock.
Yeah.
I cannot deal with it.
Yes. That drives me crazy. And like now, and speaking as a Canadian, if I don't frame this properly, it's very hypocritical. Our last men's national team head coach sort of brought to our part of the world the fake injury timeout. And he was so not subtle about it that everyone knew that the keeper would go down at 30 minutes, the coach would whistle or make a funny face, and the keeper would be like, oh, quad cramp. And it got to the point where, like, we get it, that happens as part of the gamesmanship. But then this season in the W Gold Cup, Bev Priestman, who's our women's national team head coach, who's from the same town as John Herdman, who now coaches Toronto FC and coached the men's national team to the World Cup. Not only were they planning for this injury to happen, she had a whiteboard that was 5 feet tall and 3 feet wide ready. So the keeper goes down and the players just know to come to the bench, and she's like drawing with her draw erase marker. I'm like, you're not allowed to do this. Like, I don't know who's in trouble, but one of you gets a caution, if not all of you. Like, it's not subtle. So that I think will eventually be changed. But you're right. So it's how the players like manipulate it, and it's just this unspoken thing. And that's sort of my pet peeve of the game. I have some crazy rule changes that I would like to see implemented, but I don't have that authority. I don't work for the International Football Association Board.
Give us one.
I would like to see in the final 15 minutes of each half, once an attacking team crosses the midway line, it becomes like basketball and it's over and back. That is now the goal line. If you are in possession, you bring the ball back, turnover, blow the whistle, restart, free kick, whatever. I hate, and then maybe this is just as a commentator who's called so many 0-0 games. I hate when the back four goes back and forth, or back to the keeper and back forward. And I know it's part of the football, but for me, it's just like, penalize them. They've crossed the line. This is now their attacking half. I also hate penalties, and I would like to see penalties abolished. I would much rather see them, and this would never happen, play 7-a-side playoff. You can bring the net to half and take 4 players off the field and have a 7-a-side for a goal instead of 11v11. And then penalties, they're playing for penalties. Some teams that are undermanned, whatever. That's one. The other thing, as a rugby fan, is that I love the television match official. I love that the referee wears a GoPro. You can hear the referee talk to the players. When they go to video assistant referee, or even when they're talking to their ARs, I want to know what that conversation is, and I want the audience to know what that conversation is. You may not agree with the referee, but if you hear the line of questioning, it makes it more understandable or more digestible. I want them mic'd, and it would also stop my true number one biggest pet peeve. When there's a foul and you disagree with the call, there are now suddenly 8 players surrounding the referee, pointing and spitting probably and talking in their face. Back off. And if there's a microphone on that referee, the tone of that conversation and the words that are going to be spoken are going to change drastically. No FIFA Pro Union would ever allow that to happen. But in my imaginary world where I get to make the rules, that is the first change I make. Mic the refs, let the audience, let the broadcast, let the viewers at home hear what's going on the field.
I like that suggestion.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, we'll do everything in our power.
If Johnny Infantino wants to step down from FIFA, I'm not saying that I'll run. I'm not saying that I won't run. I'm just saying that I have ideas.
You have our support.
Yes.
We'll present this to him when he's on the pod next
I'm
week.
sure he's an avid listener of this podcast. He'll be taking notes, I'm sure.
We've got a direct line to him.
Just a quick one before we go. I think we're running out of time. Who's your favorite Welsh player?
I mean, Gareth Bale is such an easy answer. I mean, I for like a hot minute was a Tottenham Hotspur fan because of Gareth Bale. I'd never seen anyone reach the level that he did, that brought attention to what's that weird country with the dragon on their flag. But I also, I mean, Aaron Ramsey is right up there too. Like the list of famous, and that's the nice thing. And maybe that's a byproduct of being Canadian, where we're also kind of like an under the radar group where we kind of have this like, what's the word? There's a mentality, underdog mentality is what I'm looking for. So like Gary Speed, of course, the legend, and the fact that he coached as well has a special place in my heart. So, but it's tough to look past Gareth Bale, especially when it goes Wales, golf, Real Madrid, and that makes me happy. So, and he played for LAFC, so he was in Major League Soccer for a bit, which was exciting for us. He won the championship, and he's like, "I'm going to go golf forever," and we're like, "We're so proud of you, Gareth. You go play golf, buddy. You've earned it."
Fair enough. Yeah.
Maybe just one more question. You mentioned earlier in the interview that all your experiences as a commentator. But what would you say, would be the one most important quality that has helped you succeed?
Ooh. I think it's tough to give a blanket answer for everyone, because everyone brings a skill set that's unique to themselves, and the voice doesn't change. Some people have different connections. There are things you can improve upon, but I think it's as much a piece of life advice as anything else, and that's the one thing you can control, is you can be the hardest working person in the room. And you have to believe that you're doing this job, or you're pursuing this because you love it, or you love the job so much that the sacrifices you have to make are worth it. And that propels you forward. And there's a lot of competition. Like, you have to love to compete. Like, you're a part of a team, but also, like, if you want to be the person that keeps getting games or keeps getting new games, you have to stay on top. You have to be good. You have to be improving. You have to try new things. So you can control how much or how hard you work and what you do to seek feedback and to be better individually, and let the chips fall as they may. And you also have to be lucky. And it's more than that. There's opportunity and there's privilege in life for every aspect of it. But if you are not ready to seize it when it comes knocking for you, then then it's not a valuable skill to you. Like when our common friend Dave had said, "Have you ever done golf?" I said, "No, but I would do it. Like, I'd be happy to try it and learn." and that's like my default is yes. Yes, how? My partner is a musical theater performer, so she always jokes about yes and for improvisation. When you go to watch an improv skit, they say yes and. For me, it's yes how. So yes, I will do this. How will I do that? I'll figure that out. And you have to just be a good person to work with, and that's the number one thing I tell like younger people. You want to be a pleasant person. And it's as simple as that. And I think that transcends this industry, that transcends sports. Like the irony is I growing up was the shyest person in the world. So there's a ton of people that are like, you're talking for a living, like you're on television for a living, like that's you. And you have to grow into that. You have to almost assume a character that when I'm broadcasting, it's me, but it's announcer me. And that gives you a little bit more armor than you normally would have. And you just have to be willing to take chances, laugh at your own jokes. Don't take yourself too seriously. And maybe that's like a piece of Canadian in me coming up, but we're all self-deprecating. We try not to take ourselves too seriously. And I think that bodes well for our position and what we can add to a broadcast.
Great.
Brilliant.
Thanks for that.
That was the character, announcer Adam. We heard a bit about Snowmobile Adam.
Yes.
Almost.
Announcer Adam is objectively better than Snowmobile
Yeah.
Adam, just based on past results.
We almost, in another life, would have got fighter pilot Adam.
Oh, you didn't have to go there.
Yeah, but you'll always have William Akio.
Yes. When I put my head on the pillow every night, I can say things might be tough, but at least I'm not Willie Akio missing the net. Thank you for that, Naz. I needed that.
Thanks, Adam. It was very, very good.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay, gentlemen. Thank you. This was a pleasure.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks
See
for
you
coming.
guys. Thank you.
Bye. So again, that was Canadian sports broadcaster and football commentator Adam Jenkins. For any questions, please do submit an email to us, as well as leave a comment in the comments section. Do follow us on our socials. Links are all in the description. Till next time, see ya.
See you. Be careful on snowmobiles.
And when driving cars.
And when driving cars. And all vehicles.